Here in the program here on Sports Radio 810 WHB as we broadcast live here at Radio Row, Super Bowl 48. Our Super Bowl coverage brought to you by Twin Peaks, Bud Light, and Meany's Galleria, Bob Allen Ford, Sprint, and of course the Low T Center. The Super Bowl is coming. You're going to hear it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, courtesy of our friends at Westwood One and one of the men who will be on the call of that game. You hear him on the Westwood One throughout the season. Of course, great player himself turned great broadcaster. It is James Lofton with us here in the program. James, how are you, sir?
I thought you were going to tell me I had low T.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It's symptomatic of men my age.
It is.
And you can handle it, take
one,
care of it.
One out of every three over the age of 40, James.
I'm over the age of 40, too, unfortunately.
Just barely. You played to about the age of 40, didn't you?
Let me ask you this. Is the hangover gone yet from the Indianapolis game?
Oh, the Chiefs you're talking about? I was like, wow, wait a minute, hangover. Were you out with us last night? No, we just flew in last night, so that wasn't the case.
Well, I did that game for Westwood One Radio.
You know, yes and no. Yes, for some it is because of the season being as surprising as it was.
Yes.
It was kind of like, okay, hey, they did better than I thought they were going to do back in August, so I'm okay with it. But for others, 38-10 is got to be a win. You just can't let that go. I mean, you tell me. I mentioned that if you don't change defensive coordinators, you better change some personnel because somebody, you blow that kind of lead and have the kind of last 7 games that they had. I mean, statistically speaking, they were the worst defense in the NFL over the last 8 weeks by yardage.
Yeah, I'm not buying that because of Holly and
Okay.
Houston's injuries. You know, what I saw market improvement in the whole team from top to bottom.
Right.
You know, granted they were great in getting turnovers and a lot of big special teams plays. But I remember when I was getting ready for the first Kansas City game against Denver, and I remember reading one of the articles from, April or May, and it said if this team could win 7 games, it'd be a great season. And if this team could possibly go 8-8, it'd be an even better season. So they obviously exceeded that. And I think they started to develop some players. And it's funny, Jamal Charles goes out in that game, and all of a sudden we find Dwayne Bowe, who hadn't had a season to write home about before that point. So I think the elements are there, and sometimes it takes a mishap to kind of move forward because we saw Alex Smith throw the ball exceptionally well in that game.
There's no doubt that the offense looks pretty good, and there's a lot of confidence there. But the defense, again, you mentioned the Holly injuries and Houston injuries. I'm glad you did because Vince Wilfork went down for New England.
Yes.
And they still play. Look, Denver lost Elvis Dumerville through a contract snafu, and then Von Miller. They've lost Chris Harris. Now, granted, they put a lot of pressure on you with their offense, but they're only averaging 25 a game here in the postseason. They're not hanging 40 out there and winning 40-31. Defensively, they're stopping some people. I hear you, but come on, they were getting rolled defensively.
But it still takes the right combination. And it's funny, I know John Dorsey since he was a player in Green Bay. We were there together, and I've watched him go up the ranks. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see the subtle moves that they make. And maybe it won't be a headline player. Maybe it'll be a backup player that comes in, has a more prominent role, does some things. And now you're able to draft from a position of strength where you don't have to go after the guy who's a little bit of a reach in the first or second round, and you can say, this is the guy who is going to be good for the next 3-4 years for us. And so I think once you get to that realm, I think you're pretty good.
James Lofton is with us here in the program. He'll be part of the Westwood One broadcast. By the way, which side you got?
I'm on the Seahawks side.
The Seahawks side,
yeah.
Okay. Do you always have the NFC and Malone always the AFC?
You know what, I do not. And I don't know how our producer, Howie Deneroff, comes up with it. I'm pretty sure it's a coin flip.
Okay.
Or Mark Malone gets the more prominent quarterback. I'm not sure.
I like that. Is this game, by the way, going to come down to whether or not they blow the whistle on the defensive backs of the Seattle Seahawks?
It really could. You are very perceptive. Hadn't been blown very often on them. They've gotten away with a very aggressive style of play. And you got to remember the Denver receivers are pretty aggressive, too, with the rub routes and outside Decker and Demaryius Thomas. They're
pick
physical.
Plays
they're physical. I don't call them pick plays. They're rub routes. You rub the defender into another defender. That's what you're trying to do.
Blocking early.
You rub the defender into
they're putting a helmet in the chest before the ball ever comes out of Peyton Manning's hands.
But if that ball is thrown backwards to the 3-by-1 side, that's actually a lateral, and you alert the officials to that, You got to understand the rules.
Right, right. Oh, and you got to massage them
Yep.
from time to time. There's
Yep.
no doubt about that. Is that why, look, we've talked about it that, obviously sitting in Kansas City, we're trying to find reasons why Peyton Manning would fail, which he hasn't to this point. But
I almost forget about that angle.
Oh, yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
you're not rooting for him because doesn't it make the AFC West look even better?
I mean, look, I don't – during the season, I'm not rooting for him. Now the Chiefs are out, so whatever.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter to me. But like I said, we're grabbing at straws to try to figure out what might be, wrong or flawed with him. But you tell me this. I'm kind of getting everyone's theory because we've talked about something we've been talking about throughout the year. No quarterback only one quarterback, who's thrown for 40 touchdowns in a season won the Super Bowl. Now that's kind of part of that is because not many guys have done it.
Exactly, not many. No one who's ever thrown for 55 touchdowns has ever played the Super Bowl.
Well, that's right. But I'll give you another one. The 3 highest scoring teams in NFL history didn't win the Super Bowl.
I'm sorry.
And the Broncos are now number 1. So is there a flaw with being that heavily
No.
weighted offensively? No? It's just coincidence.
Yeah, it just happens. And it's interesting. If I had told you before the season started, so, okay, I want you to take your bias out of it with your hometown team. Who would you like to see in the AFC and NFC championship game? What would be a great matchup?
We pretty much got it.
And what matchup would you have liked to have seen in the NFC championship game? The old guys and then the young guys at quarterback. And so we got great matchups. And now we end up with – just go back, I think it was week 2, when Seattle dismantled San Francisco up on Sunday night in Seattle. And all of a sudden, I think it was 29-3.
Yeah.
And boy, I got that partial total recall really working tonight. But we start to watch Seattle, and they go on our radar. And Russell Wilson is now 15-1 at home. They lose the one game to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals turned the ball over 4 times in that game. Normally you do that, you lose, but they won. So you have the matchup that you want. You've got this great iconic figure against this quarterback who's the little engine that could. He's never met a challenge that he didn't want to face head on. It's great theater.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt, and it's going to be fun. And, of course, you'll hear it here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
What does the HB stand for? I know the W is that area of the country.
Right. The joke used to be world's happiest broadcasters.
I like
a long time ago, when AM had music on it, it was a rock and roll station.
When AM ruled the world.
Yes, it was a rock and roll station. They called it world's happiest broadcasters.
I like it.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
We'll stick with it. Now it's just a heritage. It's old.
Yeah.
That we're actually not on the right side of the Mississippi. That's just how old the frequency is.
Is that why?
Yeah. W's are on the east side.
So you should have a K.
We should have a K, but it goes back. The station dates back so far.
Oh.
Yeah, there it is. Leave it to a Stanford guy to be inquisitive.
And this morning I thought I would learn nothing.
Yeah. But now you have. You've learned a valuable.
I can sleep well at night tonight.
A valuable nugget. Is there one of these 2 quarterbacks that has, more to gain? I mean, if Peyton Manning wins, is he supposed to kind of win? He was kind of supposed to win anyway, so he really doesn't gain anything? Or does he get some alleged monkey off his back from some people who don't think he's been good enough in the postseason?
Somebody asked me the other day, who would I like to play with? Which quarterback? And I said, okay, well, how old am I? They said, you're 26 years old, prime of your career. I said, am I in a contract year? If I'm in a contract year, I want to play with Peyton Manning.
Right.
If I'm 26 and I'm going to play with that same team for the next 4 or 5 years, probably want to play with Russell Wilson because he's probably going to be around. I don't know what Peyton's going to do next. It's going to be something spectacular. But both guys have that special something about them. Now, Peyton has displayed that for the last 15, 16 years. Russell Wilson for the past 32-plus ball games plus the postseason. So, like I said, I'm excited about the game. And because I'm covering the Seattle team, I've done more interviews with their players.
Right.
And so, not that you start to sway in that direction, but you start to sway in that direction.
Yeah. And so it does kind of influence you a little bit. But a lot of people are picking Seattle, and for good reasons.
I didn't say I was picking Seattle. No.
Well, I'm going to get to that here in a second. Let's do that. We're talking to James Lofton. Of course, he'll be on the broadcast for Westwood One. Final 4. I'll start you with this one. Are you upset that you've got to be out in the cold? That's not the norm here for the Super Bowl.
Well, at the NFC Championship game, I predicted a daytime high for 42 degrees, game time temperatures of 37, overnight low 28. Yeah. I was trying to be as optimistic as possible since I'm standing on the sideline.
That's what they're saying now, though.
I would still like to have played golf one day this week. So that's my Super Bowl location.
I'm going to put that down as yes. How long is David Shaw the head coach at Stanford? Your alma mater?
Long time.
Long time? You
Long
think
time.
he's not?
It is his dream job. and I don't see him being tempted by the NFL and their evil money.
And their evil money. Okay, Stanford doesn't usually like to pay the
Well,
coaches, the salaries. I mean, will they pay to keep him? I think they should.
I think David being in that environment, a lot of those Silicon Valley corporate bigwigs are former Stanford grads.
Well, tell them
And they're glad to see David around.
yeah, tell them to pony up.
I think the pony's exhausted.
Oh, yeah. All right, what's your 40-yard dash right now? If you had to run it, what's the best you can pick off right now?
I still compete in Masters track and field.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and our slogan is slower, older, longer.
Okay.
It takes us longer to run. I can run 4 something,
Really, sub-5.
but I would need to be ideal conditions.
Okay.
And
All right.
I would need to be the one who says go.
Okay.
And then you start to
Yeah,
watch.
okay. And finally, give me your prediction. Who does win?
This is so tough. I could give you the patent answer. There's Larry Fitzgerald's dad. Hey, I got to go. I got to say hi to him.
No, you're not going to
Mr.
make a pick?
Fitzgerald, no.
You're not going to make a pick?
No, I'm not making a pick.
You don't know?
I like both teams.
You like both teams.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, when you're calling the game, Kevin Harlan says he'll never take a side on a game he's calling.
I like that.
Yeah.
Kevin's so smart.
He is bright. He works with us. That's what makes him bright, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, James, thanks so much for the time, man. Have a great call in the game.
Thank you for having me.